This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Why don't we play together?
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.
Hello and welcome to the Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod episode 65. My name is Kev, self-proclaimed Sega Dream Boy, and I'm joined by Mike. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Nice to hear from you, Mike. And we're joined by Lewis. Hello, Lewis.
Yo.
So, Lewis, you've been on twice before, is that right?
Only once, actually.
Only once, and we've never overlapped. So this is you've run out of luck finally being on an episode with me.
No, it's a pleasure.
Mike, is this your 65th appearance?
No, I think this is my 47th.
Part-timer. So how have we all been, gents? Let's start with Mike. So just quick hello to the panel there. Mike, what have you been up to then?
So I've been, as always, buying random Dreamcast crap. And I'm not going to go into detail about that because it interests no one apart from me. But I've also been playing some modern gen stuff. I've been playing Super Sonic Racing. What's it called? Team Sonic Racing.
Lewis, have you played that? I'm sure I saw that on your feed.
No, but I'm intrigued because I played, was it Transformed?
Transformed, yeah. And then the one before that was All Stars, I believe.
All Stars
Racing. Yes. Although I had the PS3 version, which you couldn't get Ryo Hazuki in, which was annoying because I found that out after I owned it. So, yeah.
So, Mike, have you played the two other versions in this series?
I have, yeah. I love All Stars Racing. Had it on everything from the iPhone to the PC. Love Transformed, although it's not quite as good. I felt it lacked a little bit of just pure karting. Team Sonic Racing, really big into, really sort of excited by. Gotta say, I'm a little bit disappointed. It's a bit boring. It's really not the game I expected. I think they did a major mistake by not putting other Sega characters in there.
Right, which I think was a few people's worries all along, isn't it? So.
Yeah, it was I said it on the podcast before, but it's a silly thing to do because although I know Sonic's a massive franchise, it's sort of possibly the worst timing to release something about a Sonic-focused game with what's gone on in the last couple of months.
Is Human Teeth Sonic a unlockable character in this, or?
I hope so. If it's not, they've missed a great chance of capitalizing, but which is unlike Sega, really.
So how many starting characters are there in this?
So it's a bit weird because you have the story mode, which is sort of feels a little bit like the story mode to sort of the DS adventure game for Sonic. I think it was called. But someone help me out here. What's the name of the BioWare developed Sonic game on the DS? No, it's gone. But there's an RPG type thing. So they have that sort of static effect they have where they have the two characters, no background animation at all, but there's two characters talking.
Right. Okay.
Most of the story, and so you start with the three characters as part of Team Sonic, which is Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails. Then you you play against other teams, and you gradually unlock different teams as you go along. I think in the arcade mode, which I haven't really played much, I think you get all of them from the start. So there's a few more in that, but you actually only have three characters in the story mode to start with, which is a bit underwhelming.
I'm thinking, not that as the biggest Sonic fan, I don't know about you, Lewis, but I think I'd struggle to name who those three characters might be. I'm going to say one of them is Tails, and then I'm just shit out of guesses.
Maybe Knuckles.
Oh, there we go. Is it Knuckles?
Yes, so it's Knuckles, Tails, and Sonic to start with.
Yeah.
But then you get sort of the obvious. You get Amy, you get Big, you get. I can't remember what the member of that team is now, but you get a couple of other characters. You get quite a few like sort of Sonic Adventure inspired characters. So you get the robot whose name also escapes me at the current time, and you get things like Vector and stuff, and so some good characters in there. But the game is just a bit dull. The tracks are really overcomplicated and quite long. So you sort of end up with this sort of, it's trying to be a Mario Kart beater, but actually it's just not as fun as Mario Kart, which pains me to say, but it's just not as good.
I don't know if anyone else may have played this here, but if you've played the Disney Infinity Kart Racer, which was also Sumo Digital, that sounds a bit like what you've just described in terms of the fact the tracks were too long and a bit devoid of the character that makes Mario Kart, particularly Mario Kart 8, so brilliant.
Yeah, it's the biggest problem is they've rubber banded it too much. So the entire game's so heavily rubber banded that you could race perfectly and still only be literally a few meters ahead of the car behind you. And it's really weird. It doesn't feel like a proper kart racing game, which is a bit of a shame because I think Transformed was so good and so good for Sega, for old Sega franchises. It's a real disappointment that they've just focused on Sonic.
That is a shame. It's not. I know the movie has slipped back to next year now, but it doesn't seem to have been a great year for Sonic yet again.
Do they not think that like the old Sega characters are sellable? I mean, is Sonic just Sonic on vanilla Sonic? Characters just what they think will sell, or I'm not. Yeah, I was kind of unsure why they took them away.
I think but I don't think, and we've spoken about this before on the podcast many times, but I just don't think sometimes Sega really know what to do with their own franchises because they've got Sega Heroes on mobile, which is massively popular from what I can tell. It's obviously selling quite well, and that's got loads of old franchise characters in it. It doesn't only focus on Sonic characters, and that does really, really well. So on one hand, they're giving us the old characters, and on the other hand, they're saying, you've enjoyed our last 2 kart racing games, here you go, have a sequel to Sonic Drift. It's a bit sort of an odd. That's what it feels like. It feels like a sequel to someone who just played Sonic Drift on the Game Gear, rather than someone who actually played All Stars or Transformed. It's a very strange sort of game. And I think another moment where Sega have sort of done really, really well in terms of they know that people like the kart racing games, and all of a sudden they've dropped the ball quite drastically, which is a shame.
Just to wrap up on that, you mentioned Amy was in it. Have they gone for a reverse Sonic Racing and made her on foot whilst everyone else is in a car, or?
No, she's in the car. Everyone's in the car, as far as I can tell.
They've missed the most hipster niche trick they could have done in the world. Right.
That would have been cool. A sequel to Sonic R would have been amazing.
I've seen a few people now sort of asking or clamoring for that. So I think that would be a good move. What about you, Lewis? What have you been playing then? Either recent games or more retro themed?
Well, I recently had the fortune of going to Japan for the rest of my first time, and I think it kind of was a good job that the sort of junk. I kind of joined the junkyard. I can't remember exactly when it was last year. I think it was towards the tail end of last year. And I think kind of getting involved with like everyone here and the website, and just like being, following everything on Twitter and keeping an eye on it a bit more than just when I was just a fan of the website. I think it really got me more engaged with, Dreamcast again, and sort of old, these older systems again. Saturn as well is another one I'm kind of really looking out for as well. So going to Japan, I was like, this is my moment. So I got a good set of games. I picked up Zombie Revenge, the Japanese version. So I tried to get some games that were kind of cheaper to buy, the Japanese edition. So I got that, and was very surprised that all the voices are in English. Most of the text is in English. I can't think of an example where I was like, I can't read this. So that was cool. And then Cosmic Smash was the one I've always been looking out for, and I'm finally really glad to own that. Another game which I turned it on, and it's basically completely accessible for English, non-Japanese speakers, which was surprising to me. So that's awesome. I've not really gotten too much into it, but I'm going to set aside some time. And then also while I was there, I kept seeing in shops like Book Off, like the secondhand stores, Grandia was everywhere. And when I got back, I thought I really need to get Grandia 2 finally. So I got that as well. So I got the PAL version of that. So that is what I've been doing. That's what I've been getting in Japan anyway. So yeah, a good selection, I think.
That does sound like an amazing experience. Mike, have you ever been to Japan?
No.
I have a feeling that if you went to Japan, we'd possibly never see you again.
Yeah, see, the problem is I don't travel well, but my wife loves Disneyland. We've been to Disneyland twice in the last year. The first time I've ever left the country, because I don't like flying or traveling at all. So we're actually now planning to go to Tokyo Disneyland because she's a massive Alice in Wonderland fan, and they do massive amounts of Alice in Wonderland over there. So I expect to be over there, and then I'll probably come back about 5 years later.
That's I can't quite compete with going to Japan. However, I did go to Stockport to go to a very game store that Tom had previously mentioned and discussed on the blog, and I got there and the Stockport drizzle to discover that it closed down about 2 months ago. So on the build up to that, me and Mike had been discussing the idea about like doing some kind of like retro shop reviews and like photographing them and interviewing the owners and like putting some information out there about what could be in people's local areas, specifically Sega themed. And that was supposed to be the start of that. And it was, it did not start in the best of manners.
I've actually been to that store because I'm local. So I actually went there. It was kind of odd because it only opened like maybe Friday, Saturday, I think.
It was a Friday. I'd spotted that. It was a Friday that I'd been in over that way for work. So was why I decided to kind of try and drop in on it, but didn't work out. Sadly, sad to see that is gone because people who know it said it was quite a decent place. Still got Affleck's in Manchester though. Didn't that shut down? Has it? Oh, not off to a good start. Potentially, yeah. The other one in Sheffield that was a really good one as well, that I'm sure I've mentioned before on here, which is called Playtime, also closed about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, maybe now. So there's
a really good one in York that I went to.
Sore Thumb, isn't it?
Sore Thumb, yes.
I was actually, because I know these retro game shops, they kind of sometimes only have what people bring in, but like they were like fully stocked up. I was surprised that they had like PCFX games. I was like, how did these end up here?
They do a lot of the markets, retro markets around the country. They do a lot of them, so they're always present there. And I think I bought a Dreamcast karaoke machine from them last time.
I mentioned this on the last show, but my Dreamcast Choo Choo Rocket controller is from those guys. The orange one that would be normally packed in with the game and the box from Japan. But I've never actually been in the store, but I do, probably like Mike, I follow them on Facebook and Twitter, and I've bought tons of stuff from them at various shows. So games-wise, something that, again, I've been discussing a lot with Mike, is I've been playing a lot of the original GBA, the original Game Boy Advance, particularly Sega stuff that's on there, which was fueled in part by I believe it was yours, wasn't it, Lewis? Your look at Choo Choo Rocket.
Oh, yeah.
So after looking at that, I looked at some of the other games that are available on there from Sega. Some of them are really expensive, like 30 quid plus, but I've hoovered up some of the cheaper stuff. Sega Rally, for example, was one of them. I did get Choo Choo Rocket, both the standard version and there's one that's packed in with some Sonic game that I've not played yet. So that's been quite good. And then also been playing Advance Wars, which is obviously not a Sega game, but it's probably the system's best series, if you ask me.
Yep.
So that's pretty much it. I'm still addicted to Apex Legends, which I don't know if either of you two have been playing or are aware of.
I am aware of it. I played a lot of Overwatch. I was kind of intrigued, but then I kind of fell out with Overwatch, and I was like, I'm going to have a break from multiplayer games. So that's why the Dreamcast stuff is, piling up now, playing more of that. Enjoying that. I do like that because it's very similar to Overwatch personally, which I moved away from because I don't really feel like I'm good enough at that for the amount of time that I play it. So that's pretty much it for me in terms of gaming. I'm going to move on then to our kind of first topic. Mike has mentioned before that he's a backer of this, which is probably a surprise to no one, but just want to put congratulations out there to
the Kickstarter by Andrew Dickinson, apologies, the Dreamcast Year 1 book. So, Mike, you have funded this, that's correct, yes?
I have indeed, yes.
What about you, Lewis?
I haven't. I think I missed it, unfortunately. I did back the controller before, and I think I think I missed it, but I also might have seen it and thought, I've already backed one Kickstarter and was probably keeping an eye on my money. So it does look awesome, though, and I will have to probably invest after it does come out properly.
So just congratulations to him, obviously. Mike, any news on what is the kind of release schedule of that? A good host would have checked this beforehand, but I'm going to try and put this on you.
I think, as far as I know, I think Andrew's still in the process of writing it. I think he's gathering all of the sort of. I think one of the backer tiers was to write a piece about a game. So I think he's getting all of them together. I think our legendary leader, Mr. Tom Charnock, I think is actually also involved with writing a couple of bits about it as well. So
I believe
I think he's
interviewed as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Everywhere you turn in Dreamcast, someone mentions Tom at some point. Sort of, you forget after a while. But it's looking good. I think he's on track for it. I think he's got some stickers made up. I think some backers get stickers, which look pretty cool. I've got 2 versions myself. I've asked him to sign one of them. So with the view, hopefully, of giving it away as a prize on the Junkyard at some point. So
excellent. Me and Luce can enter that then. There's one of us copy sorted, potentially. Are you going to get Tom to sign it as well?
Tom, of course. Tom signs everything. Everything I have Dreamcast, I've asked him to sign. But there's also, the thing is with Dreamcast books, I said this on the last podcast as well, but we've still got the other one coming out at the end of the year as well, the one which is the Dreamcast version of the... Is it the Mega Drive one from a couple of years ago?
Yes, yeah. Is it from Japan, that one? Or is it?
No, that's already out. I've got that one. That's
okay.
The Dreamcast guide. It's the Kickstarter backed one, which I can't remember the name of it now. Which is awful. We're so unprofessional. Hang on, let me have a look. Carry on talking, and I'll have a look.
My problem with the Kickstarter books, Lewis, is that I don't really care for reading. Yeah, I like to look through stuff that's got like glossy pictures and stuff like that. But
like a coffee table, but
yeah, or I just like normally if I need to know anything about the Dreamcast, I just text Mike. So it's like I know not everyone has that kind of Dreamcast equivalent of Google, but I do. So that's my resource.
So the other book I'm talking about is Sega Dreamcast Collected Works by Darren Wall, who did the Mega Drive Collected Works a few years ago. So that's coming out this year as well. I just had a look as well. I've got 6 projects backed on Kickstarter. None of them are released yet, which is I'm not quite sure. It's a bit worrying, really.
Go on, Mike.
I was going to basically say what they are, basically. So the Intrepid is coming out. Senile Team's next game. Xeno Crisis, which Tom again has had some involvement with because I think he's lent them the twin sticks, so we have twin stick support on it, and the new controller, all coming out this year.
Which is Retrobit. So their Mega Drive one is out now, isn't it? And the Saturn ones are out, which from what I've seen, have reviewed really well. So I'm looking forward to that controller, especially.
Is it Retrobit?
Is it? I thought it was.
It's a Retro Fighters.
Retro Fighters. There we are.
I think we do have Retrobit controllers coming at some point.
Right.
I think
if we keep this podcast going long enough, we're bound to get something right at some stage with our information. But yeah, so quite a few things there for you to be waiting on, Mike. So that is one of my problems with Kickstarter, because me and Lewis, when we were talking about this. I'm a bit kind of impatient. I ordered that controller and I'm already sick of waiting, even though they had a very clear time frame when I paid for it. But
to make it even worse as well, though, is that there's also some Dreamcast shoes that have been announced and are going to be released next month, which I've also backed. I've also bought. I didn't raise that on the groups because I just didn't want to sort of sound too weird that I'm also ordering Dreamcast shoes.
The Dreamcast shoes, do they look like
shoes?
Van slip-ons? Do
Yes,
you know what I mean?
They are, but they're different. There was one released a few years ago. That they released one for all Sega consoles. They got another one now for 20th anniversary. But the best thing about it, I'll never wear them, although they are my size apparently. But the best thing about them is the box, because it looks just like a Dreamcast. It's an amazing looking box. So
awesome.
anyone wants them, play Asia.
Wicked.
Yeah, there we go. We'll get that in the link. A delightful box and some trainers for those of you who are interested. Right. So Kickstarter loosely covered, mainly with misinformation. I just wanted to give a shout out. We had the very first Dreamcast hour yesterday. Mike, you were following this as I was running it, weren't you?
I was, yes.
Just as a disclaimer, it only lasted 31 minutes. So the Dreamcast hour had a few teething issues. Basically, we're just looking to kind of expand our video output. Would you say that's fair, Mike?
I think so, yeah.
Kind of what we've talked about. Lewis, did you catch any of this nonsense we had going on?
To be honest, I can't remember what I did yesterday, so no. But I will next time. Now I know it is a thing. Yeah. I'm also like, I don't have all the info. We're all winging it today. Yep.
So hoping the aim for next Saturday night is to break the 45-minute barrier on the way to the Dreamcast hour. It was met with some technical difficulties to begin with. I couldn't find the TV remote. Then the stream cut out because my other half had come up to bed and started streaming Netflix. And it took me 5 to 10 minutes to cut out. If nothing else, it has completely changed my point of view on people who do stream professionally and make some kind of living from it. I now have a greater amount of respect for them. And we have the added benefit that I'm now considering setting up the Virtua Tennis Championships, World Championships, whatever you want to call them, that will run after I was called out for my complete lack of ability, which I personally feel was unfair. On that point, Lewis, Virtua Tennis fan?
I'm hanging my head. I do not own this game. I'm sorry.
That is rocked me to my core. That has.
But I do want to get it because I really want to see if I can get it to work with the Dreamcast fishing controller,
which was covered once on the Dreamcast Junkyard itself, wasn't it?
I feel you should do the tournament with that controller. No actual normal controller, just that one, the fishing one.
I don't think the motion sensor works though, does it? Wasn't the in-running joke that the person was playing thought they were playing the demo or something?
I think Tom try it at one point. I'm sure Tom tried it at one point. I think Aaron tried it as well. I think it works particularly well. I think there was a little bit of talk when we set up Play Expo. I think there was a little bit of talk amongst us about trying to get a fishing controller set up for Virtua Tennis. I think we decided against it in the end.
I will need to check that. I'm sure it doesn't work other than for the thumb stick, because there was a time during our childhood me and my friends used to have a regular Dreamcast night because we were in sixth form. But for a very long time of that, we only had 3 official pads and a fishing rod. So during the tennis doubles, because you could only play certain games, obviously, because of the lack of controls. During those games, someone had to use the fishing controller. So there would be one person there using that, but just that kind of thumbstick in the middle and the buttons. So it was a kind of handicapping rock, paper, scissor based system for whoever got that each time, I believe. But there we are, enough insight into my sixth form. So coming up on the Dreamcast hour, if you want to give us a shout out for anything you would like us to do or play during that, we've already had a few suggestions. That's what we're going to be doing going forward. Maybe organising some charity streams and stuff like that. So just wanted to give that a shout out. So recently, we had some rather lovely pin badges on our website. Now, Mike, I'm going to cut over to you to fill us in on where have these pin badges come from?
So I believe they've come from VV Collective, which is, from what I know, I think they're based in America. I think they're sort of Dreamcast Museum. They do lots of things like, they might display at events as well. And they sent some badges over to Tom, unknowing that Tom had left the junkyard. So I had a message from Tom one day saying, a lovely guy, he's given me some badges. I'm going to write an article. So thank you for VV Collective for getting Tom back onto the junkyard, which is fantastic. But they look fantastic. I don't know if you've seen them. They're all over on our Twitter page. We've done it quite a few times. But they have like a little smiley face VMU, a console. I think one says 20th anniversary as well.
The arcade stick as well.
Yeah, the arcade stick was the one
that I
was particularly filmed on. So sadly, I don't think you can buy these. Delightful
They
though
sold
they are.
out. They sold out, I think.
So something you'll be able to track down on eBay, I'm sure, at an extortionate price at some time in the future. Everyone's favorite cesspit that it is sometimes. Just wanted to give them a little shout out. I'm sure Tom is enjoying those patches wherever he is in his social media retirement. So the other thing, for something from myself, I wrote a little article up about sealed games. So not sealed games as I had originally published this article, but sealed games. Something that I know we've talked about or spoken about a few times. Lewis, just want to ask you, when did you get back into the Dream? I've picked up that you've only recently got back into the Dreamcast. Is that right?
When I was younger, my friend had one. He was the only person up to that point I've ever met who had a Dreamcast. You know, everyone had a PS2, I guess, at the time. It's kind of foggy, but you know, I used to play that, and then when I grew up, you know, me and my friends were sort of like reminiscing about old games, and I was like, oh, I used to play these. I think it was Quake 3 Arena and Power Stone 2. If you ever see him on Twitter, I won't shut up about either game. So I was thinking, like, you know, I want to get this again. So I got all of them, and actually kind of relating to the article, I bought Power Stone 2 brand new because I didn't realize at the time that it was, you know, I think I just searched on eBay and I didn't really have much eBay experience. And I was like, oh, there it is, brand new. And I think I paid at the time £40 for it. And then like right after, there was like loads of secondhand copies. I don't know what was happening on eBay that day, but that was the only one that came up. So yeah, I then proceeded to open it. So I guess people like to keep them all nice and fresh and never open them, but yeah, I had to play the game. So yeah, so that's like the last 8 years maybe I've been sort of following the Dreamcast now. So yeah, so it's not, I haven't had it since I was a kid. I just played it at a friend's.
So I don't know, £40 maybe 8 years ago was a bit expensive. I'd say you'd easily get that for your open copy now, just as a little aside.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah. I know me and Mike have spoken about this. I love that feeling of like getting the game and opening it. And like, that's kind of what we tried to put across with the article, the idea that so much of the stuff that is out there isn't necessarily because of collecting or isn't necessarily for collecting, but has got that, that kind of low value enough that you can just take the cellophane off, open it up, brand new disc.
Okay.
Intact hinges, which is worth the extra markup on those games itself. I don't collect many Japanese or US games, but I'm going to imagine the cases are stronger. Would you say that's a fair assumption, Mike?
Yeah, I think they are. Yeah, standard cases. I think they've got some ridiculous design like we have.
Yeah, it's just like, and as I said in the article, I've stopped buying most Dreamcast stuff. Unless it's kind of like disc only or something like that, just because the hit when it arrives, the postman might as well stamp on the case around our way for the condition that some of them arrive in. Knowing ill is meant to any postmen that may be listening, or any couriers that we may have on the show or listening to the show. Mike, do you? So I know you're like quite a big collector that we have on the team. Would you ever have a sealed collection? Is it something you'd maybe move on to, or are you happy just sort of shred stuff and play it?
So I do play everything I get. So I don't have many sealed games. I got a couple of from the same seller you focused on the article. Actually, I've got quite a few European variants that are sealed, only because I don't need to open them up. I don't need to play Rainbow Six in German. I don't need to. So does anyone need to? But so I've got quite a few of those. I've got a few sort of Japanese ones that are sealed. So I've got Soul Calibur and Crazy Taxi sealed, but only because they've been like £3. I don't really see the point of sealed game collecting. But if you like sealed game collecting and that's your boat, then absolutely fine.
Come to think of it, actually, the Power Stone 2 I got was one of these Halifax ones. Had the sticker on the front and everything. Actually, at the time, I got Jet Set Radio and I think it was MSR. and Choo Choo Rocket. I think they were all sealed, but they were like significantly more cheaper. I think I got them in like a 4-pack lot on eBay. I don't know if you can get that anymore.
Quite a few of the sellers do still package together those kind of more common run-of-the-mill games. Yeah.
You've got a lot of the ones on the interesting for if you are a collector. There's the seller. I think it might again be the same seller we featured in the article, but he was selling lots of American games. What was interesting about them is that some of them actually had the Canadian instructions on the back. So obviously in Quebec, you have to have French and English language, and so they actually bundled with the French instructions on the back of the actual game. Obviously, you're not going to get those probably if it's an open game. So sometimes getting sealed games, there's always a benefit to them. There's extra little bits, things like I'm thinking of an Atari Anniversary Edition in America where you had a sticker with it. A lot of games, if you buy them opened already, the sticker's going to be gone. So there are always, and they're always quite cheap. There are a couple of games that are really expensive they're sealed, obviously. Try and pick up Cannon Spike sealed, then you're going to need to sell a kidney. But most of them, as with everything Dreamcast, it's pretty reasonable, really.
Yeah, for those who have read the article, I am still waiting on a response from Halifax, Italy, or whatever their trading name is these days. I can't believe that they think they've got better things to do than answer questions from niche Sega gaming blogs in 2019 about their early 2000s trading. So if you do have any contacts there, feel free to give them a little nudge our way. Just kind of vaguely on that point, I'm always fascinated. I've been buying quite a lot of games, Japanese, Saturn and Dreamcast games from Amazon lately, from a particular seller on there whose name has escaped me at the minute.
Yes, Japan?
Yes, Japan, it is them. Yeah, that's it.
You've been talking to John as well, haven't you?
I have been talking to John as well, yeah. I'm always fascinated that like their games come with like the spine card, but there seems to be such a kind of cultural like pride almost of looking after their game stuff. It's like you can buy a Mega Drive game in this country that arrives and it's not even got the slip cover left. Or the instruction manual's been like fucking chewed or something like that. But you can order this 20-year-old game from Japan and they've managed to maintain in pristine condition a pointless piece of card that lives on the outside that I don't know what purpose it serves, but it's still there when you order it. And it's just
the bizarre thing is that like Mega CD games in this country came with those spine cards, didn't they?
Oh, I see. I had no idea because I've only ever brought that. Like,
this is what I mean. I don't actually know if they did. I don't know if I'm imagining it or sort of like. But when I was Mega CD buying Mega CD games, I had a couple came with these little strips. I'm pretty sure if you get a sealed one, if you could ever find a sealed Mega CD game ever again, they actually come with these strips. So I don't think it only was in Japan, but obviously in this country, no one cares. They just throw them away. I think it's some ridiculous.
Absolute savages,
In Japan, I've had parcels come because I use the same seller that you actually mentioned on Amazon, and I've had lots of parcels over them. I've actually had games come to me, and a little note inside them in slightly broken English saying sorry for the state of this game. And all it is a slightly creased spine. And it's like, don't worry, I'm happy with what it's like. It's a completely different culture, like you said. It's such a different way of respecting what you've got.
When I was over there, I was just amazed when I went in. I think it was Super Potato, the retro game chain. All the games, I don't know if they just switch the cases round or they just look pristine. They're always in plastic as well. They're like protected from any terrible things that may happen to them, and all the spines are intact. And yeah, it's just like I was just looking around and thinking, like, if this was, CEX or something, like there'd just be a massive crack in the back cover, like you said, someone might have chewed it, the disc would be scratched to oblivion. All the discs were, I don't know if they resurfaced them. It's like every single game they get, at least in this store I was in, they make sure it's, spotless by the time someone actually picks it off the shelf, which, like you say, is a cultural thing, but it's kind of one that, we should definitely, follow suit with.
Yep. I'd be fully in favor of that. If everyone listening to this show could sort their act out going forward with all games for all systems, that'd be appreciated for future generations, please. So enough kind of cultural bashing of our own country, the savages that make it up. We're going to put a question there. Well, we put a request out earlier on for questions. So we're just going to go through some of these, just because I'm not going to lie, we've not got a great deal of content to talk about. So here we go. This is your chance to be on the show. Zero apologies will be made for the terrible pronunciation of most everyone's names. Just you've got to own who you are. So our first question from Twitter, Leon Huntrod. Talk about Headhunter.
Okay.
The teacher in me wants to point out that's not a question, Liam. It is a statement, or it should at least have a question mark on the end. Lewis, have you played this?
Oh, yeah, I own it, but I've not played it. It's like on the back. It's in the catalogue of games that I need to get to. I think that's going to be a recurring theme from me on this podcast.
Going to stay in teacher mode. That's your homework. It's also going to be my own homework as well. Before we cut to you, Mike, because I know you will have played this. Isn't Headhunter terrible?
Is that a question? Sorry.
Yeah, that is a question.
I thought it was a statement. Sorry. No, it's a good game.
Is it? Game. I'm not sure, because I was going to get this out and have a go. I'm not sure if I'm confusing this between.
Not again.
Yeah, it's not the game with the motorbike in it, is it? No, it's not. I don't know.
It is the game with the motorbike on it. It is the game with the motorbike.
Oh right, maybe it is. I think I'm confusing this with Blue Stinger, which brings me to another question.
Yes, you are.
Blue Stinger terrible?
Yes.
Right.
No.
Oh no! What is going on? I don't know what to think now. I don't think I've played Liam. I don't think I've played Headhunter. So we've talked about it. Mike, have you played it?
Yes, I have. Headhunter is a sort of Metal Gear Solid, open, like a Metal Gear Solid sort of game. It's basically a third-person action adventure. Really good game. You ride a motorbike around quite a lot. I know Tom loved it. He did an article for it on Junkyard a few years ago. The only thing wrong with the game is that there's not many people in the cities when you're doing the open world bit, so it does feel a little bit like it's sort of empty, which does feel a bit weird. But there's loads of like little. It's very reminiscent of an early sort of 3D Grand Theft Auto, because it's got like fake advertisements everywhere, and that sort of slightly mocking tone to it. It's a pretty good game actually. It plays really well. It's not many games like that on the console, so we're pretty good with it. Blue Stinger, on the other hand, don't mention Blue Stinger, because last time we mentioned Blue Stinger on the podcast, we got a lot of angry fan mail, or angry hate mail, I should say, because it's a game which, even though it is awful, we all know it's awful, some people do love it.
A bit like Altered Beast, which we also like to hate on this show.
Does anyone love Altered Beast?
Yeah, it's strangely popular. It's one of those things that boils my blood. How popular that game, how much merchandise it's.
Yeah, I was going to say the merchandise.
It's got a whole section on the Sega shop, and it's like, I remember playing that as a kid and being like, this game's shit, and then never really playing it again. And it's funny because of the guy's terrible kind of wires from your guar. He sounds like when you like a jam tart and you put the tin over your mouth. Like, I hate that game.
A jam tart. That was the most British thing I've ever heard. A jam tart. Yeah.
I was going to go with Bakewell tart, but I thought jam was more universal.
Very local, yeah. Bakewell tarts are very local, sort of, yeah.
So there we are. I don't know how I do this, but I've managed to massively sidetrack us completely again. There you are, Liam. Jam tarts and Headhunter. What more could you want? Moving quickly on to the next question from James Mormon. Can you DC HDMI mod a Dreamcast? I had no idea. Lewis, do you have any experience with the Dreamcast?
Other than writing an article on my on AltMag, my website, a while ago, like, look at this, it's funny because it's called Dreamcast and not Dreamcast. That is as far as I go with the Dreamcast,
Yeah, Mike, my only experience, and I tweeted this out from the account, was playing on the one that we had on our stand that had been kindly lent to us. Have you? Yes. Are you similar, or have you got any other experience?
No, same with you. Yeah, I've never seen one, never played one before.
So those of you who may have saw us at Play Blackpool, we had one on our stand that was lent to us by Asobi Tech, or more specifically Quang, who is Asobi Tech. He did confirm, because I included him in this, it's exactly the same innards as a Dreamcast. So in theory, it could be DC HDMI modded, or however you pronounce that.
I can't see why it wouldn't be.
Yeah,
it's all screen, isn't it?
Yeah, the issue would be then getting the input into the screen, because I'm going to imagine the screen is, for those of you who aren't familiar with a Dreamcast, it's a kind of built-in one Dreamcast with a screen from a third party in China. Is that right, Mike?
I think so. Yeah,
it's completely unofficial from what from what
yes.
I remember. So like it's a bit like the I think it was Logic or someone like that made some of these screens for Xboxes, for the original Xbox and PlayStation, that you could just kind of clip on. The idea was they were supposed to be like a portable console with a screen built in. So you'd need some way of then getting the modded input into a different screen, I imagine, because I'm going to imagine that screen isn't 1080p or 720p even. So the one that we had a go on, I was quite impressed with, but it was quite pixely compared to even through like putting your console through a cheap upscaler. But I thought that was a great question. If there's anyone out there who's more informed than us on that, feel free to get in touch. I'm just going to move on to this question from PC Wizard. Does the soul still burn? Lewis, you can answer that.
I suppose.
Typical PC Wizard. So he put that in relation, I think, to the way that I had worded the original question about do people have any burning Dreamcast questions. Obviously, it's a Soul Calibur quote. Mike, I'm going to rephrase his question for him. When did you last play Soul Calibur?
I played Soul Calibur 2 nights ago.
There we go. I knew you'd have played it recently. Lewis, have you played this?
Yes.
There we go.
I own it and I've played it. Hey.
There we are. Brilliant. So I don't know whether he was expecting that question to be answered or not, but just for all of his dedicated work, there we go. We just wanted to throw that in. This one here, I'm just going to try and read out. It's quite long. Where is it? Games like Take the Bullet and other games featured on the Dreamcast Junkyard. When will they be? There's a shit emoji. I don't know. I feel so old sometimes reading stuff from Twitter. I think he's trying to say when will they be released, but I don't know what that is meant to be. I feel like I'm about 70 years old.
That's the question from James Jarvis.
It is James, yeah, who people may know.
Oh, I think he means will they be dumped?
Oh,
yes.
Right,
yes.
There we go. Lewis, this is your niche now. You fangle. I don't know. I couldn't even read the emoji, James. So, does anyone have a more informed take on that?
I think there's a lot of talk. I know that again, talking about Tom gets more mentions on the podcast now that he's not here than when he was here. But I know Tom was in contact with lots of people on things like Assembler Games and with a couple of sort of private collectors. I think a lot of them, there's quite a few betas out there and quite a few unreleased games out there still. I would imagine that within the next few years, I would imagine some of them being dumped.
Excellent. Just a little shout out. James is organising, or he does organise some weekly gaming nights, which are on, I believe they're on Sundays. So if you are interested in getting your Dreamcast online, PC Wizard, who we mentioned before, sells all the bits and has all the information that you would need for that. And then you've got James who can get you involved in some games. A good question here. With the Phantom Menace being 20 this past month, what are your memories of the Dreamcast port of Episode 1 Racer, and how do you think it compares to the classic N64 version? I'm just going to break this down first. Has anyone played the N64 version?
Yes.
Lewis?
No.
And then I have, but it was like a copy that a friend had borrowed from somewhere, so I only played a few races. My experience, Mike, and you may be able to weigh in on this, is the Dreamcast version is far superior.
Yes.
Anyone who was following our account might have noticed we put out a little cinematic intro to that for May the 4th, just as a kind of announcement. But I only really got into this game I don't know, maybe within the last 5 months. I'd previously ordered a copy last year off eBay and spent ages getting around to playing it, and then discovered it didn't actually work, and then found someone was selling a disc-only copy that was pristine. So I just kind of butchered them together. But I'm really enjoying this. Mike, did you have this originally, or is it something that you've collected since?
I don't think I had it originally. No, I think I had it on a PC originally. So I was mainly a PC gamer when Dreamcast was around. So I had it on a PC. I've probably one of the first games I bought though when I started my Dreamcast collection. It was like 10p in Game Station. Those are the days. So I've actually bought the PC version on Good Old Games website, which I'm sure people are familiar with. They've actually released a PC version onto that.
Is that recently. They've done a lot of like asset reworking of that, and can you play like 8 or 12 player online on that?
I'm not sure. I haven't played online with it yet, but it runs really well. But I was actually quite surprised with how much it looked like the Dreamcast version. The Dreamcast, I played the N64 version as well when it was one of the best games on the N64 actually, and it was a really great game when the N64 pushed the console, well beyond what you thought the N64 could be capable of. The Dreamcast version
was that like 17 frames a second, or
17 frames a second? Yeah. If you do an expansion pack, it's like 2 frames a second. I'm joking. I'm not a big N64 fan. But no, the actual Dreamcast version is really good. It's a little bit slow in places, and so it is based on one of the worst films ever made. But
I'm a huge Star Wars fanboy, and I do hate that film.
Yes,
the pod race is kind of okay.
Yeah, but when the only good thing in a science fiction film is a racing section, and you sort of have to question why. Anyway, that's a completely different conversation.
Yeah, if nothing else, it brought us a game that is the only game on the Dreamcast that actually has the word junkyard in it in a menu, I believe. So there is, you can go to an actual junkyard within the menus.
Floigan Brothers would be the other one as well.
Oh, I've let myself down there. You know what? that was one of my sealed games that I've never got around to playing on it because you told me it was rubbish. So
yeah.
Right. Question for Lewis. Lewis, do you own or have you played Floigan Brothers?
No.
What is wrong with you? How can you not be playing these killer apps of the Dreamcast?
I think I just need to get in. You need to just tell me a list, and I'm just going to play all of them.
What rating would you give Floigan Brothers, Mike, if you were giving it a scale of 10?
A scale of 10?
Yeah.
5.
5. There we are. Worth a play. So,
bearing in mind, it's not actually as bad maybe as I made out. It's not a right game. It's just a bit of a. Well, these games that have a high concept and sort of sound really fun, but then you play it and it's sort of like, I just want to go back and shooting things.
Yeah, I get that. Right. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to add, I think that most going around the internet and knowing people who have played this pod racing game, specifically mainly the N64 version, I think it's probably the most beloved thing that actually came from that movie. Like you say, I think people prefer that game more than they love the movie. So
there's actually quite a few good games from the film though, bizarrely. There was, on the PC especially, I think actual Star Wars Episode 1 game was pretty good on the PC if I remember rightly. And you have Jedi Power Battles, that wasn't that bad. You have Super Bombard Racing on the PS. No, let's not mention that one.
There was another one on the Dreamcast,
Star Wars Demolition.
That one,
yeah. We don't talk about Demolition.
Yeah.
We don't talk about.
We were talking about good Star Wars games. Okay.
Yeah, we could have an entire podcast based on Star Wars Demolition. It's one of the weirdest games, and the worst thing about the game isn't the fact that you can play as characters in ridiculous vehicles in semi Vigilante 8 inspired arenas. It's the fact that they remixed John Williams' soundtrack. I mean, why would you? Who thought it was a good idea to go, right, we've got a great game, a great franchise. What's epic about it? Or the music? Oh, brilliant. Let's remix it. Brilliant. Yeah. No. Awful.
I like to think that that's a postmodern shot at George Lucas, who made some really good films, but then won't stop dicking around with them.
Yeah. Exactly.
This will show him. We'll remix the sound. Right, we're going to move over to our Facebook questions. This one is from Kamodi Kumasan. This is a good question. I like this. So we'll go around the table on this. right, I'm going to try and read this. I'm going to read the whole thing because I tried to break his question down and I couldn't figure out where to start. So he said, I've got one. If and when you get your Dreamcast a custom paint job, which will be never, but I appreciate the question still, would you choose to theme it after? Just for fun, I'd love to have a Resident Evil 3 Nemesis with Jill paint job. Let's start with you, Lewis.
I had to think about this, and I think the Dreamcast being such a sort of minimalist design, I guess, I feel like I do see a lot of these, the Dreamcast designs, like custom designs, and they look really cool, but I always think they're a little bit too busy. So if I had one, it'd probably be themed with Jet Set Radio, which is probably arguably the most stylish game on the system. I just think anything sort of Jet Set Radio, but it'd have to be kind of, sort of minimalist. It wouldn't be too out there, even though the game is kind of out there, I suppose, in its presentation. But yeah, it'd probably be something. Even just the graffiti soul would be really cool. Just that, black Dreamcast, gold graffiti soul. Don't know. There you go. That's my that's my take on this question, I think.
I like it, Mike.
I think my one would be actually, it's already there. It's that Half-Life one. Sort of steampunk style Half-Life.
That was someone had posted that on the Facebook group recently.
Yeah, so it's done by an artist. I know John knows the artist. He put a link on the group, but it's I think it's an Austrian artist possibly who does it sorts of consoles. And fantastic, looks amazing. But if I had to do another one for any other game, I would have a Wacky Racers one and make it. I love Wacky Racers, both the game and the series, and so I would love to have a Wacky Racers console.
That's a good answer. I would go for something from Sega Bass Fishing. I think not Sega Bass Fishing, just Sega Fishing. Just like when we used to find it hilarious when you'd reel in a fish and you'd get the kind of broken small one type of weird voiceover that would come on, or it'd go like, "Whoa, that's huge!" Like there was someone who'd done it in one take, and then they'd not bothered to get a real voice artist. So I'd like one of those real kind of bizarre, like paint jobs was featuring that on. That would be funny to me and about 5 of my friends, and everyone else would be like, "Why something like this?" So there we go. Question answered. Going to move to this question first before we're going to go to a more in-depth question. One that came in right at the end from Faith here. So thank you to Faith. I'll put a link to this in the notes, but Faith runs her own blog, which is a good read. But I can't remember the name of it. I think it might just be Faith Gaming or something like that.
Retro Faith.
Retro Faith, there we go. So some good stuff on there, some good Sega stuff in particular. If you could have a new crowd-funded DC game that is not a fighter or a shmup, what would it be? What would it look and play and sound like? So, Lewis, going to start you just for consistency. Let's hear your answer to this.
Can it be a game that already exists, but like kind of something I want tweaked with it?
I'm sure if this isn't what Faith was answered after as an answer, she'll let you know. So go for it.
Well, there's a lot of this is probably like people are just going to groan when they hear me say this, but there's a lot of visual novels on the Dreamcast, really good ones from that era, and I love visual novels. And there's ones like Comic Party and like Ever 7 games like this, and they just
Never 7 and Ever 17.
That's it, those two, and also Sakura Wars as well. These are just, I mean, I know they're getting, I know Sakura Wars, I think they're trying to get a PC translation of that in English, so that should be coming our way sometime. But yeah, a lot of these games are just fantastic, and things like Comic Party, are ones that I've always sort of found interesting because I like watch the anime of these series, and that you can't play them in English, and I'm too lazy to learn Japanese. So I would really, if someone could just translate those on I guess if it was the PC, I'd still be happy, but on the Dreamcast, I'd be over the moon. I think that would be even cooler just because I love the console, so it's like two good things hand in hand. So yeah, that's my answer. Sorry if all the visual novel haters are shaking their fists right now, but yeah.
With Mike being here, you've got your key audience for visual novel fanboys.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Mike, what would be your answer to this be?
So I will very quickly just say to remind everybody, 'cause it's been quite a while, but talk about visual novels. There actually is a visual novel still in development by Retro Summers, the guys behind Xenocider, which is a sort of Space Harrier style game. They are still doing last time I checked, they were still doing their visual novel style indie game called Amoeba. They teased it a few years ago. So there will be an English visual novel coming out at some point, hopefully, in the future, which is
I'm
good.
gonna check that out.
I should look forward to it.
Yeah.
In terms of me, I would want my game I've always wanted, which is a fully in-depth, full racing career, top-down, 2D racing game. So like the full racing world, everything in it. You can do it on Dreamcast. Wouldn't take a huge amount of time. I say that. I said not a huge amount of time. It's not a huge game in terms of memory, but that would be a perfect fit for me because it's retro enough to be appealing to retro fans, and also it's got that sort of sporty racing side to it.
I like it. I have got the dullest answer here.
Cool.
I know we had Giant Killers on the DC, but I'd love to see someone make a kind of retro-themed football manager, LMA manager style game, because I feel like we would have seen one had we had more time. So that would possibly one. And my other one, possibly even duller. We only had I believe we only had one golf game or one golf series. If you think about the Saturn and the Mega Drive and the kind of lineage of Sega's consoles, they always had great golf games. So the idea that none of that made it to the Dreamcast, I'd like to see someone do something golf related.
Yeah.
So I always forget what it's called. I know I've spoken to you before about this, but the Tee-Off series in Japan, Mike, do you remember the name of this?
Golf Shiyu? There's actually two golf series though. There's also Netu Golf.
Right, so I wasn't even aware of that. I take it that's a Japan only, yeah?
Yes, yeah, it is. Yeah.
So so it's just one of those things. I've spoken before to Mike about this because I was quite interested in this. They released downloadable content courses and extra holes in Japan for that series. And I found that quite interesting. It's possibly one of the earliest uses of that to add extra content to a game. Certainly for a Sega game, I believe that would be one of them. But I didn't actually do a great deal of research into it. I know there was some stuff like the extra levels and stuff like that existed in the 90s for places that did have internet, but I've always found that fascinating. So that would be my answer. Now, I kind of teased this was coming. This is a much more in-depth question. Again, I'm going to start with you, Lewis, just for because we've been starting with you for the other ones. Cool. So this is from Brian Vines, who most people may know from the Saturn Junkyard. And I don't know if he's ever been on the Dreamcast podcast, but he's certainly wrote something for the site before. So he's put, in light of rapidly failing Dreamcast hardware and software, how long do we have until it becomes impractical for most people to enjoy the Dreamcast on original stock hardware? And then he's followed that up with, is enough being done to preserve the Dreamcast and its games, physically or otherwise? What have been some of the most promising developments towards that end? And what do you think needs to happen to ensure its legacy survives in a post-Dreamcast world? So, like I said, a real in-depth, meaty question there. Sorry to stitch you up answering this first, Lewis. But
I think that, being a Dreamcast fan, I feel like to be a fan, you've got to realize the shortcomings of the actual system itself. Mine isn't exactly, doing too well, and there's all these things being thrown around about, lasers dying and disk rot and all these different things. But I feel like with the what is the device called where the SD card reader that you can install instead of the CD drive? I've gone blank. You know the one I mean?
The SD card, I'm quite weak on this area, but I believe, is that the GDMU?
Yes, I was going to say that, but I thought I was going to say the wrong thing. Yeah, so things like that I think are like really great. You know, obviously you can get all these games online, you can burn them. But I guess, you know, are we talking about like the games themselves? Because this seems kind of like about the hardware. So yeah, I mean, emulation is, I guess, the way to preserve the system if the hardware was, you know, every Dreamcast was to fail. I feel like emulation is, you know, pretty spot on for Dreamcast. I don't know what you guys would say.
I'll just fire in here because I know that Mike will be able to build on this answer. I've recently just received, and I mean like within the last 2 days, I've got a console that's got the compact flash mod. So the disk drive still is intact, but it's got the compact flash that goes in the side. So it's got the real quick loading times. For anyone who was watching the Dreamcast Hour, you might have noticed the menu of Dream Shell 4.0 was up running that. Now, I got mine from Retro Mods. I just want to give a shout out here because it's a fantastic piece of kit. It's got the Pico power adapter converter in it, and he's done a great job with that. It cleaned the console up. It looked brilliant. So I did pay for that. So it's not a freebie. Just wanted to mention that. And then the card was provided to me by Jan, who is the Austrian fellow who also offers a similar thing. But he kindly sent me a card just to go in that I purchased from him. We covered this before on the site. It was covered by Tom. Mike, you own that unit now, don't you?
I do, yes. Yeah.
So that was what I thought of when I read Brian's thing, his comment, because with that unit, that takes me to 3 Dreamcasts now. And the other 2 that I've got, one of them is my original one from sort of like Christmas, whenever. Dreamcast was out, and the other one I picked up since, because the first time that started to do the reset glitch, I didn't have internet at the time, and I didn't realize that was something you could fix. So I bought a new Dreamcast because it was about £40 or something with tons of games, about 2004. But those 2, some of them will play one disc that another one of the systems won't. So
mine does that.
Yeah, so they've both started to get, like what Lewis mentioned, that kind of like temperamental factor to it. I don't know if it's something about the design, but I've noticed that even with mine in my room that I'm in now quite a lot, the disc tray, the inside of the disc tray for the Saturn gets significantly less dusty than the Dreamcast one, even though I use them similar amounts. So I don't know if there's difference in designs that cause that, or how the dirt is getting in there, but I find them forever having to clean the insides of it out with cotton buds, etc. Mike, do you own any other variations of Dreamcast or Dreamcast mod?
That's a very good question. I do not. No, I don't think I think I might have a GD Emu on GD Emu. A GD, however you pronounce it, on its way. I honestly don't remember, which is really bad, and it sounds like I'm just like swamped in Dreamcasts. But I have bought a couple of Dreamcasts in the last few months, so I'm pretty sure I've got a modded one coming over. I'm fine with my the CF mod that you mentioned. Obviously, I've got the one that Tom had on the article. I don't actually use it that much. I actually use my normal stock Dreamcast because I don't actually have any problems with my Dreamcasts. I'm talking about Dreamcasts that have literally been played in the last 2 years. I probably played about 7,000 hours into my Dreamcast from doing the reviews for all the games. And my Dreamcast work really well. So I sort of have a slightly different opinion on this, in that I think maybe people are panicking a bit too much. I think we're all prone to do that with retro consoles. My original Dreamcast I got actually went wrong within about 6 months. So there are obviously going to be examples of them going wrong, and there are more and more now. But actually, I don't think we've got to panic too much. I think we've got a fair few years left until all the Dreamcasts die in one mass suicide. And I think to be honest with you, with the amount of different things coming out, with different power supply bits coming out, with the GDEMU, with the CF card reader, with other things coming out, I don't think we're going to have any problems. I think by the time we do have that situation where every Dreamcast is pretty much gone, we're going to have so many different types of way of playing them, then I think we're all going to be okay.
Yeah, especially the National Video Game Museum has just opened in Sheffield. Or I say it's been open about 6 months there now, which
cool.
is relocated. And I can't remember the name of it, but there's it's in Cambridge. There's like the Computer History Museum or something like that, which is a show on currently as we're speaking. I feel like there's more and more of them popping up, coming up, all like sort of all over, all around. We've got a few bits to announce coming up in the future that we can't really talk about a bit more at the time, but kind of relate to that kind of like legacy preservation. And I think like Sega have just put their department on the Mega Drive Mini. Is that what it's officially called? I've got one of them pre-ordered, but
yes.
So like they're taking the emulation back in house. I think the further we go forward, there's going to be some stuff like it's like the rumor of Panzer Dragoon Saga is that the source code is lost, isn't it? And people always say the same thing about Final Fantasy VIII. That's why it's not on the new pack, the new collections that are coming out, because they don't actually have the code anymore. So I'm going to imagine there are some stuff like that, and I know it's probably more prevalent in like arcade collection, especially. I think it was the Neo Geo arcade boards that arcade owners, you could write a new ROM or a new game over an old board. So frequently they do that because they were trying to make money rather than kind of like think about preservation. But like occasionally people are finding loads of like, well, not loads, but finding the odd game and stuff like that hidden away. A bit very similar to the way the Dreamcast is getting the unreleased games still coming through every now and then. So I don't know. I think as it becomes more and more important to us as gamers, as retro gamers, I think we're going to see more developments on that.
I don't think in terms of game preservation, I don't think we've got anything to worry about at all, because I'm pretty sure every single Dreamcast game and every demo has been dumped at some point. I can't think of many that wouldn't have been preserved. Possibly things like the Birdcage capsule games. They're the ones that in Japan, which you only be able to use through the internet. Apart from things like that, I don't think there's going to be a huge amount we're going to lose. I always think it bigger sort of, when we talk about games preservation, my biggest thing is always about the fact we've got to remember that all these games get released. The amount of games that don't get released, the amount of games that are developed, there must be thousands of games out there in a partial state of build. And that always interests me more, and trying to preserve those games for people to see, I think is probably more interesting from a Dreamcast perspective.
I can never remember the name of them, but there's a company that makes actual old consoles. Like they made the wood paneled SNES, and they did like a similar wood paneled Mega Drive, but they recreate everything. I'll need to look them up and put them in the notes, but I'm just completely blanking on their name. But everything about them it's not like emulation. It's like recreating the chips and the circuits and the control boards and all the PCBs that powered those machines. Now, obviously, a SNES and a Mega Drive is probably more straightforward than something as powerful as the Dreamcast was. But I feel like with the controllers coming out, where they've had to kind of make their own custom VMU pieces or like components, I'm sure that if given time and given enough like specialism and advances in 3D printing and board printing and stuff like that, I'm sure that we'll hopefully get some way of buying like a brand new Dreamcast 10 years down the line.
It's Analog is the company, I think you're thinking.
Analog, yes, that's them. Yeah. So I've seen one of their consoles in person at a show, and it's incredible. The kind of love and care that have gone into it. So as the Dreamcast becomes more trendy and hipster, I'm sure we're not far off someone starting to cast an eye over it.
I think the community is incredible. I just all the things that the Junkyard reports on. I think, as far as having faith, that community will definitely pull through if there was to have any, like we say, like a scary overnight disaster where all the Dreamcasts fail. I know the community would be able to fix something up for sure.
It would be very Sega if the Y2K bug actually came in like like 2022 because they programmed something wrong or something like that. Back in the day when we were worried about planes falling out of the sky and all the other nonsense that was being reported at the time. So that actually wraps up the questions. Just to keep you informed, we've got a few bits that we're going to hold back, I believe, for now, just because of the running time. But in our upcoming episode, we're going to have a look at mascot and platforming games. So just to give you a shout out that will be happening in the future. If you've got any suggestions, you, the audience, that you would like us to look at, I'm sure we'll be able to get some kind of vote up on that, or we'll be able to factor you into our list, similar to we did for the last episode with the sports games. So I just wanted to give you a shout out that will be happening. Floigan Brothers, Mike, is that going to be your choice? Is that considered a platform game?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no. maybe that won't be on the list. So I'm going to hold back the other segment that we're going to have there. So just in thanks, just wanted to thank you for listening to this episode. You can obviously follow us at the DC Junkyard on Twitter and Dreamcast Junkyard. If you type that into your search engine, preferred search engine, you will find both our Facebook group and our main blog site, which the URL always escapes me. Mike, do you want to give yourself a pimping?
Yes, yeah. I you can find me on Twitter at space_turnip. When I'm here as well, so I want a very quick shout out to Mr. Ian Lee, who some people might know from shows like Thumb Bandits in the past, many years ago, and also his radio show on Talk Radio. He's got into the Dreamcast scene recently. He's starting to stream some Dreamcast games, and he's given us a shout out many times, both myself personally and the Dreamcast Junkyard. And I know he listens to the podcast as well. So, and he may very well make an appearance on a podcast in future. So I just want to give a shout out to him and get everyone to check out his own streams on Twitch.
Hopefully he's played Floigan Brothers. So
I don't think he has. I didn't send him Floigan Brothers. So.
Lewis, do you want to give yourself?
Of course. So you can find me on Twitter at Lewis. That's Lewis. A lot of people spell it as Louis. But it's LEWISJFC. I also have a website I write for that isn't the Dreamcast Junkyard. Sorry, guys. It is altmaguk.net. It's kind of like the extension. It's like where I talk about anime and sort of more modern games. Whereas when it's Dreamcast time, the Junkyard is my home. So, yeah, check me out on there.
And then I am at Moneyball_Mace, where you can come talk to me. If you're one of these people who love the N64, don't come and talk to me. Every time I make a joke about it's 17 frames per second, I get someone on there like I'm not I was a mad N64 fan. I just think it looks rubbish nowadays. So, yeah. Keep that nonsense to yourself. I would like to thank everyone who sent in the questions. I don't believe we've missed any, but apologies if we did. We'll try and get you your questions on a future show. Thank you for everyone who is in our groups and who responds to us on Twitter. Thanks to everyone that is, apart from whoever it was that said I was no good at Virtua Tennis. To you, I will see you at Virtua Tennis Championship 2019, and we will settle this. Say goodbye, Mike.
Goodbye, Mike.
Say goodbye, Lewis.
I'm not going to do the same joke. See you later, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Why don't we play together?
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.